Lisa Carter sat in the cold metal chair and watched the alien faces around her. The Galactic Council chamber was huge, with seats for hundreds of different species. Most of them were looking at her with eyes that showed no respect. They thought humans were weak. High Counselor Vextar stood up from his seat. He was tall and thin with blue skin and 4 arms. His voice was loud when he spoke. "Human representative, your time of independence is over. We have decided that your species is too dangerous to rule itself." Lisa kept her face calm. She had been Earth's ambassador for 5 years. She knew how to hide her feelings. Behind her, Captain Jake Morrison stood ready. He was her bodyguard and the best soldier Earth had sent to space. His hand was close to his weapon, but he did not move. "The Zephyrian Empire, the Corvin forces, and the Helix Collective have agreed," Vextar continued. "Humans must give up all worlds outside your home system. You will accept our protection and guidance. This is not a request." Lisa looked around the room. The Corvins were big and covered in thick armor. They loved war and fighting. The Helix beings were small, but their technology was very advanced. Together with the Zephyrians, they controlled most of the galaxy. "You have seen how humans fight," said War Chief Techmore from the Corvin section. "You only defend. You never attack first. You are weak and soft. You react like scared animals." Other aliens made sounds of agreement. They had watched humans for 50 years. In every conflict, humans waited until they were attacked. Then they fought back just enough to survive. The aliens thought this meant humans were afraid to start real wars. Lisa stood up slowly. The room became quiet. "Counselor. Vextar, may I ask you something? Speak quickly, human. Our patience grows thin." "Have you ever wondered why humans don't start wars?" Lisa asked. Her voice was soft but clear. Vexatar laughed. It sounded like metal scraping metal. "Because you lack the strength and will for true combat. You are a prey species that learn to use tools." Lisa nodded. "I see. And you believe this means we are weak?" "We know it," said the Helix representative through its translation device. "Your military responses are always limited. You fight like you are afraid of your own power." Jake felt something cold in his stomach. He knew Lisa well. He could see the change in her posture. Her shoulders were straight and her hands were steady. This was not good. "Let me tell you something about human history," Lisa said. She walked closer to the center of the room. "On our world, we had many wars. We learned to make weapons that could destroy cities. We built bombs that could end all life on our planet." The aliens looked bored. They knew about human weapons. They were not impressed. "We learned something important from those wars," Lisa continued. "We learned that humans are very good at killing. Too good. We are so good at war that we almost destroyed ourselves. Do you know what we call the last great war on Earth?" No one answered. "We call it the war to end all wars. Not because it was the last war ever, but because it was so terrible that we promised ourselves we would never fight like that again. We learned to be careful with our anger." Vextar waved one of his hands. "More human weakness. You fear your own shadows." Lisa smiled. Jake had seen that smile before. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator. "You think we fight defensively because we are afraid," Lisa said. "But you are wrong. We fight defensively because we are afraid of what we might do if we don't. We don't start wars, Counselor Vextar. We finish them. The room was very quiet now. Some of the smaller alien species were looking nervous. "Your threats are empty, human," Vextar said, but his voice was less confident. "You will submit to our authority or face the combined might of 3 empires." Lisa walked back to her chair. She picked up a small device and spoke into it. "Admiral Brooks, this is Ambassador Carter. Authorization code Omega-77 Alpha. Execute Operation Sleeping Giant." Jake heard a voice come from the device. "Copy that, Ambassador. The giant is awake." Lisa looked at Vexatar. "Counselor, you have just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. You have given humanity a reason to start a war. Your empty threats do not frighten us," Vextar said, but he was stepping backward. "They should," Lisa replied. "You have never seen humans when we stop playing defense. You have never seen what happens when we decide to hunt instead of hide. You wanted to see human military power? You are about to learn why we keep it locked away." The chamber's communication systems suddenly came alive. Warning signals and emergency broadcasts filled the air. Jake could hear alien voices speaking in panic about human ships appearing in Zephyrian space. "That's impossible," Vextar said. "Our intelligence shows humans have only defensive fleets near your colonies." Lisa laughed. It was a cold sound. "Your intelligence is 50 years out of date. We have been preparing for this day since we first met you. We hoped it would never come. We prayed you would be smart enough to leave us alone. But you had to push. You had to test us." More alarms filled the chamber. Reports came in of human attacks on Zephyrian bases. The attacks were fast and brutal. The aliens were not ready. "How is this possible?" Thekmore demanded. "You have no offensive capability." "We have every offensive capability," Lisa said calmly. "We just choose not to use them. We built weapons you cannot imagine and strategies you cannot understand. We prepared for the day when someone would force us to remember what we really are." Jake watched the alien faces around the room. Fear was spreading like a disease. They were starting to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. "You see," Lisa continued, "humans don't start wars because we are very good at them. When we start a war, we finish it completely. We remove the threat so it can never threaten us again. You have just become a threat that needs to be removed." The communication chaos grew louder. Human forces were attacking alien positions across 3 star systems. The assault was coordinated and overwhelming. Vextar looked at Lisa with growing horror. "You planned this. You prepared for war while pretending to want peace." "We prepared for war while hoping for peace," Lisa corrected. "There is a difference. We build weapons so we never have to use them. But when forced to use them..." She gestured at the chaos around them. "Well, you are seeing the results." Admiral Helen Brooks stood in the Pentagon Situation Room and read Lisa Carter's message for the 3rd time. The words were simple, but their meaning was huge. The aliens had declared war on humanity. After 50 years of peace, the galaxy was about to learn what humans could really do. President Alan Foster entered the room with his top advisors. Secretary of Defense Kate Sullivan looked worried. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs General Rick Hayes looked angry. They all knew this day might come, but they had hoped it never would. "Admiral, what is our current military status?" President Foster asked. Helen looked at the screens around her. They showed human ships across known space. Most people thought these were just cargo vessels and small defense fleets. They were wrong. "Sir, Operation Sleeping Giant is ready to begin." We have been preparing for this scenario for 30 years. Every cargo ship in our fleet has military modifications. Every colony has hidden weapons. Every human citizen has basic military training. General Hayes stepped forward. Mr. President, the aliens think they know our capabilities. They have watched our defensive actions for decades. They believe we are weak because we never attack first. They have no idea what they have started. Kate Sullivan pulled up tactical displays. Our intelligence network has been mapping alien positions for years. We know where their bases are, where their fleets patrol, and where their supply lines run. They know almost nothing about our real military strength. President Foster sat down heavily. He was a man who preferred diplomacy to war. But sometimes war chose you whether you wanted it or not. "How many ships do we really have?" he asked. "Public records show 200 vessels in the Human Colonial Defense Force," Admiral Brooks replied. "The real number is over 3,000. Most of them are disguised as civilian craft or hidden in deep space installations." The president looked shocked. 3,000? How did we build so many without anyone knowing? General Hayes smiled grimly. "Sir, humans are very good at keeping secrets when survival is at stake. Every major corporation has been part of this project. Every orbital factory has dual purposes. We told our people we were building for trade and exploration. We just didn't mention that our trade ships have military-grade armor and our exploration vessels carry enough firepower to destroy a small moon." On the screens, reports were coming in from across human space. The hidden fleets were revealing themselves. Ships that had been registered as mining platforms were dropping their disguises and showing their true nature as battleships. Dr. Rachel Morgan appeared on a communication link from Mars. "Mr. President, the research teams are ready. We have technologies the aliens have never seen. Gravity weapons, quantum disruptors, and biological systems designed specifically for their physiologies." Biological weapons? Kate. The great chamber that had been full of confident alien voices was now filled with fear and confusion. The species that had thought humans were weak prey animals were learning a hard truth. Humans were not weak. They were not prey. They were predators who had learned to control their hunting instincts. And now those instincts were awake and hungry. The war had begun. Captain Troy Williams checked his instruments one final time. The silent thunder floated in empty space near the Kepler 442 system. Around him, 20 other human ships waited in the darkness. For 8 years, his vessel had pretended to be a deep space research ship. Today, the disguise was coming off. "All ships, this is Silent Thunder." Troy spoke into his communication system. "Drop stealth protocols and prepare for assault. Target is the Zephyrian forward base on Kepler 442b. Remember, we hit hard, we hit fast, and we leave nothing standing." The human ship suddenly appeared on all sensors. The Zephyrians had no idea they were there. Their base was designed to watch for approaching fleets, not ships that could hide in plain sight. Commander Beth Anderson stood in the assault transport with her Marine squad. Sergeant Tony Garcia checked his weapon for the 5th time. Corporal Megan Clark looked nervous, but ready. None of them had ever attacked an alien base before, but they had trained for this moment their whole careers. "Listen up," Beth told her troops. "The aliens think we are weak because we fight defensively. Today, we show them what human Marines can do when we stop being nice. We go in fast, we clear the base, and we leave no doubt about our capabilities." The first strike came without warning. Troy's ships fired kinetic projectiles at incredible speed. The Zephyrian energy shields were designed to stop laser weapons and particle beams. They were useless against chunks of metal moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The base's outer defenses disappeared in seconds. Explosions lit up the dark side of the planet as human weapons found their targets with perfect accuracy. "Direct hits on all primary targets," reported Lieutenant Susan Harris from the weapons station. "Their shields didn't even slow us down." "That's because they designed their defenses based on their own weapons," Troy replied. "They never imagined anyone would use simple kinetic force at these velocities." The assault transports launched while the base was still reeling from the bombardment. Beth's Marines moved through the damaged station like a deadly storm. The Zephyrians had never fought humans in close combat before. They learned quickly that this was a mistake. Sergeant Garcia kicked down a blast door and entered a control room, full of confused aliens. They reached for their weapons, but human reflexes were faster. Tony's squad disabled the entire room in under 10 seconds. "Room secure," he reported. "These aliens move like they're swimming in thick liquid. Our training gravity must be 3 times heavier than their home world." Corporal Clark found herself face to face with a Zephyrian officer. The alien was tall and thin with 4 arms, but he moved slowly and clumsily. Megan disarmed him without breaking stride. "They're not built for combat," she realized. "They rely on technology and numbers, not individual fighting ability." Commander Anderson reached the main control center. A group of Zephyrian technicians cowered behind their equipment. They had never seen anything like human soldiers in action. "Attention Zephyrian personnel," Beth announced through the base's communication system. "This facility is now under human control. Surrender immediately, and you will not be harmed. Resist and face the consequences." Most of the aliens dropped their weapons immediately. A few tried to fight back, but human military training proved overwhelming. The battle for the base lasted exactly 37 minutes. Back on the Silent Thunder, Troy was coordinating with the other ship commanders. "All vessels, report status." "Thunderwolf reports complete success," came one reply. "They're orbital. Defense platforms are offline." "Grim Reaper confirms target destruction," reported another captain. "Their communication array is gone." "Stormbringer here. We've taken their supply depot. They won't be getting any reinforcements." Troy smiled grimly. "Excellent work, people. Phase 1 is complete. All ships, prepare for Phase 2. We're going." To visit every Zephyrian installation in this sector. On the captured base, the surviving Zephyrians watched in shock as human engineers began studying their technology. Dr. Carl Newton, a human scientist who had been working with alien research teams for years, was now using his knowledge for military purposes. "Their weapons are sophisticated but predictable," he reported to Admiral Brooks. "They focus on energy projection and defensive barriers. They have no experience with kinetic weapons or biological warfare." Commander Anderson interrogated the base commander, a Zephyrian named Kelthas. "How many bases like this do you have in human space?" she asked. I cannot tell you that information," Kelthas replied, his voice shaking. "You misunderstand," Beth said calmly. "I'm not asking you to betray your people. I'm telling you that we already know the locations of every Zephyrian installation within 50 light years of human territory. We've been watching you for decades. This attack is just the beginning." The alien's face went pale. "That's impossible. Our security protocols are perfect." Beth showed him a data pad displaying detailed information about Zephyrian military positions. "Your security protocols assume that your enemies will behave like you do. Humans don't behave like anyone else in the galaxy." Meanwhile, news of the attack was spreading across alien communication networks. On the Corvan homeworld, War Chief Thekmore watched the battle reports with growing concern. "How is this possible?" he demanded from his military advisors. Human ships appeared from nowhere and destroyed a fortified position in minutes. His chief strategist, a grizzled veteran named Morpak, studied the tactical data. "Sir, these are not the same humans we have been observing. Their technology is far more advanced than our intelligence indicated. Their tactics are completely different from their previous defensive operations." "Different how?" "They're not trying to minimize casualties or limit damage. They're fighting to completely eliminate the threat. This is not defensive warfare. This is predatory behavior." Dr. Paul Martinez, a human scientist who had been working with Corvin researchers, listened to the discussion with growing dread. He knew something the aliens didn't understand. "War Chief," he said carefully, "I think you need to understand what you're really facing. These aren't the same humans you've been dealing with. You've awakened something that was sleeping." "Explain," Thekmore growled. "Humans have two modes of operation," Paul said, "peaceful and warlike. For 50 years you've only seen the peaceful side. We prefer cooperation and mutual benefit, but when threatened with extinction, we become something else entirely." "And what is that?" Paul looked at the tactical displays showing human ships destroying alien positions across multiple star systems. "We become the most efficient killing machines in the galaxy. We study our enemies, we learn their weaknesses, and we exploit them without mercy." On Earth, Admiral Brooks was coordinating the expanding assault. Reports came in from dozens of strike teams. Every attack was successful. The aliens had no defense against human tactics they had never seen before. "Phase 2 is complete," she reported to President Foster. "We have eliminated every alien military installation within our sphere of influence. Phase 3 is ready to begin." "What's Phase 3? the President asked. "We take the war to their home systems. We show them that threatening humanity has consequences that reach all the way back to their own worlds." The transformation in human space was now complete. Citizens who had lived peaceful lives for decades were supporting the war effort with enthusiasm. Factories that had made consumer goods were producing military equipment. Universities that had focused on pure research were developing new weapons. Dr. Rachel Morgan reported from Mars Research Institute, "We have successfully weaponized 17 different technologies that the aliens gave us for peaceful purposes. Their own gifts are now being used against them." The irony was not lost on human leadership. The aliens had shared their technology freely, believing humans were too peaceful to use it for warfare. They had given humanity the tools for their own defeat. As night fell on Earth, President Foster looked at the reports from the first day of human offensive operations. Every objective had been achieved. Every target had been destroyed or captured. The aliens were in complete chaos. "Admiral," he said to Helen Brooks, "how long do you estimate this war will last?" Helen looked at the tactical projections. "Sir, at this rate, the alien alliance will collapse within 6 months. They simply cannot adapt fast enough to counter human tactics." "And what happens to us when it's over?" Helen's expression became serious. "Mr. President, that's the real question. When this war ends, we won't be the same species that entered it. We're remembering skills we hoped we'd never need again. The question is whether we can forget them when the fighting stops." Outside, human warships were leaving Earth's orbit for alien space. The quiet, peaceful humans that the galaxy had known for 50 years were gone. In their place was something far more dangerous, a species that had learned to wage war with scientific precision and unlimited determination. The aliens had wanted to see human military power. Now they were getting their wish, and they were learning why humans had kept that power hidden for so long. The storm was just beginning. Lisa Carter sat in the cold metal chair and watched the alien faces around her. The Galactic Council chamber was huge, with seats for hundreds of different species. Most of them were looking at her with eyes that showed no respect. They thought humans were weak. High Counselor Vextar stood up from his seat. He was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms. His voice was loud when he spoke. "Human representative, your time of independence is over. We have decided that your species is too dangerous to rule itself." Lisa kept her face calm. She had been Earth's ambassador for 5 years. She knew how to hide her feelings. Behind her, Captain Jake Morrison stood ready. He was her bodyguard and the best soldier Earth had sent to space. His hand was close to his weapon, but he did not move. The bomb. Zephyrian Empire, the Corvan forces, and the Helix Collective have agreed, Vextar continued. Humans must give up all worlds outside your home system. You will accept our protection and guidance. This is not a request. Lisa looked around the room. The Corvans were big and covered in thick armor. They loved war and fighting. The Helix. Beings were small, but their technology was very advanced. Together with the Zephyrians, they controlled most of the galaxy. "You have seen how humans fight," said War Chief Thekmor from the Corvan section. "You only defend. You never attack first. You are weak and soft. You react like scared animals." Other aliens made sounds of agreement. They had watched humans for 50 years. In every conflict, humans waited until they were attacked. Then they fought back just enough to survive. The aliens thought this meant humans were afraid to start real wars. Lisa stood up slowly. The room became quiet. "Counselor, Vextar, may I ask you something? Speak quickly, human. Our patience grows thin." "Have you ever wondered why humans don't start wars?" Lisa asked. Her voice was soft but clear. Vexatar laughed. It sounded like metal scraping metal. "Because you lack the strength and will for true combat. You are a prey species that learn to use tools." Lisa nodded. "I see. And you believe this means we are weak?" "We know it," said the Helix representative through its translation device. "Your military responses are always limited. You fight like you are afraid of your own power." Jake felt something cold in his stomach. He knew Lisa well. He could see the change in her posture. Her shoulders were straight and her hands were steady. This was not good. "Let me tell you something about human history," Lisa said. She walked closer to the center of the room. "On our world, we had many wars. We learned to make weapons that could destroy cities. We built bombs that could end all life on our planet. The aliens looked bored. They knew about human weapons. They were not impressed. We learned something important from those wars," Lisa continued. "We learned that humans are very good at killing. Too good. We are so good at war that we almost destroyed ourselves. Do you know what we call the last great war on Earth?" No one answered. "We call it the war to end all wars. Not because it was the last war ever, but because it was so terrible that we promised ourselves we would never fight like that again. We learned to be careful with our anger." Vextar waved one of his hands. "More human weakness. You fear your own shadows." Lisa smiled. Jake had seen that smile before. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator. "You think we fight defensively because we are afraid," Lisa said. "But you are wrong. We fight defensively because we are afraid of what we might do if we don't. We don't start wars, Counselor Vextar. We finish them." The room was very quiet now. Some of the smaller alien species were looking nervous. "Your threats are empty, human," Vextar said, but his voice was less confident. "You will submit to our authority or face the combined might of 3 empires." Lisa walked back to her chair. She picked up a small device and spoke into it. "Admiral Brooks, this is Ambassador Carter. Authorization code Omega 77 Alpha. Execute Operation Sleeping Giant." Jake heard a voice come from the device. "Copy that, Ambassador. The giant is awake." Lisa looked at Vextar. "Counselor, you have just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. You have given humanity a reason to start a war." "Your empty threats do not frighten us," Vextar said, but he was stepping backward. "They should," Lisa replied. "You have never seen humans when we stop playing defense. You have never seen what happens when we decide to hunt instead of hide. You wanted to see human military power? You are about to learn why we keep it locked away." The chamber's communication systems suddenly came alive. Warning signals and emergency broadcasts filled the air. Jake could hear alien voices speaking in panic about human ships appearing in Zephyrian space. "That's impossible," Vextar said. "Our intelligence shows humans have only defensive fleets near your colonies." Lisa laughed. It was a cold sound. "Your intelligence is 50 years out of date. We have been preparing for this day since we first met you. We hoped it would never come. We prayed you would be smart enough to leave us alone. But you had to push. You had to test us." More alarms filled the chamber. Reports came in of human attacks on Zephyrian bases. The attacks were fast and brutal. The aliens were not ready. "How is this possible?" Thekmore demanded. "You have no offensive capability." "We have every offensive capability," Lisa said calmly. "We just choose not to use them. We built weapons you cannot imagine and strategies you cannot understand. We prepared for the day when someone would force us to remember what we really are." Jake watched the alien faces around the room. Fear was spreading like a disease. They were starting to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. "You see," Lisa continued, "humans don't start wars because we are very good at them. When we start a war, we finish it completely. We remove the threat so it can never threaten us again. You have just become a threat that needs to be removed." The communication chaos grew louder. Human forces were attacking alien positions across 3 star systems. The assault was coordinated and overwhelming. Vextar looked at Lisa with growing horror. "You planned this. You prepared for war while pretending to want peace." "We prepared for war while hoping for peace," Lisa corrected. "There is a difference. We build weapons so we never have to use them. But when forced to use them..." She gestured at the chaos around them. "Well, you are seeing the results." The great chamber that had been full of confident alien voices was now filled with fear and confusion. The species that had thought humans were weak prey animals were learning a hard truth. Humans were not weak. They were not prey. They were predators, who had learned to control their hunting instincts. And now those instincts were awake and hungry. The war had begun. 3 months into the war, the Zephyrian Empire was dying. High Counselor Vextar sat in his command bunker deep beneath the capital city of Zephyran and watched his civilization crumble on the tactical displays. Red indicators showed human forces advancing through every sector of Zephyrian space. "Sir," his aide Velkaris said with a trembling voice, "we have lost contact with the Outer Rim colonies. The humans have cut all our communication lines." Vextar stared at the screen. 3 months ago, he had commanded the largest empire in the galaxy. Now he controlled barely a dozen systems, and that number was shrinking every day. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked. 47 operational vessels, sir. The humans have destroyed or captured everything else. 47 ships. The Zephyrian Empire had once boasted over 3,000 warships. Now they had fewer vessels than a minor trade federation. Meanwhile, Commander Frank Davis continued his siege of the Corvan fortress world Carrick Prime. The planet had been under blockade for 2 months. No supplies had reached the surface in weeks. The proud Corvan warriors were learning what it meant to face an enemy with unlimited patience. "Sir," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, "we're receiving surrender requests from the planetary government. They want to negotiate terms." Frank looked at the planet on his main screen. The orbital defense platforms were dark and silent. The surface cities showed signs of social collapse. The siege was working exactly as planned. "Tell them we don't negotiate with enemies," Frank replied. "They can surrender unconditionally or continue to starve. Those are their only choices." The psychological warfare was devastating. The Corvans had built their entire culture around the concept of honorable combat. Being slowly starved into submission was more than they could bear. Warrior caste families that had held power for centuries were being overthrown by desperate civilians. On Earth, Dr. Jennifer Kim analyzed intercepted alien communications from her office in the Pentagon. The intelligence she gathered painted a picture of complete social breakdown across the alien alliance. "The aliens are calling us the patient death," she reported to Admiral Brooks. One Helix commander described human tactics as the slow horror that never stops coming. "They simply have no mental framework for this kind of warfare," Admiral Brooks nodded grimly. "They're used to quick, decisive battles with clear winners and losers. We're showing them that war can be a slow process of systematic destruction that continues until one side ceases to exist." The human approach to warfare was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Other species fought for territory, resources, or dominance. Humans fought for complete elimination of the threat. When they went to war, they didn't stop until the enemy could never threaten them again. Captain Steve Rodriguez led his battlecruiser Retribution through what had once been the Helix Collective's primary trade route. The space was littered with the wreckage of alien supply ships. No commercial traffic had moved through this region in 6 weeks. "Captain," his weapons officer reported, "we have 3 more Helix cargo vessels on sensors. They're trying to reach their colony on Beta Centauri 7. Standard procedure," Steve replied. "Disable their engines and board them. Confiscate all supplies and send the crews home in escape pods." The Helix Collective was learning that their carefully organized society was incredibly fragile. When humans disrupted their supply chains, everything collapsed. Worlds that had never grown their own food were starving. Colonies that depended on imported technology were reverting to primitive conditions. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos emerged from the underground tunnels beneath the Corvan Military Academy on Vectar. Her special operations team had just completed their most audacious mission yet, infiltrating the enemy's most secure training facility and planting psychological warfare devices throughout the complex. "Mission accomplished," she reported to General Young. "Every sleeping quarters, every classroom, and every training facility now has hidden speakers. Starting tonight, Corvan cadets will hear human voices whispering their fears while they try to sleep." "Excellent work, Colonel. How did the cadets react to seeing human soldiers in their supposedly secure facility?" "Panic, sir. Complete panic. Most of them had never seen a human before. They thought we were myths, stories told to frighten children. Finding out we're real and that we can go anywhere we want has broken their confidence completely. The psychological impact of human special operations was immense. Aliens across the galaxy were realizing that nowhere was safe from human infiltration. If humans could penetrate their most secure facilities, then no alien was truly protected. On the intelligence ship Prometheus, Dr. Paul Martinez monitored communications from the Corvan High Command. As one of the few humans who had worked closely with alien militaries before the war, his insights were invaluable. "Admiral," he reported to Admiral Brooks, "the aliens are starting to understand what they're really facing." A Corvan general just described humans as the hunters who never sleep. They're beginning to realize that this isn't just a military conflict. It's an existential threat to their entire way of life. The aliens were right to be afraid. Human military doctrine had evolved far beyond simple conquest. They were systematically dismantling alien civilization piece by piece, removing not just military capability, but the social and economic structures that supported it. Ambassador Lisa Carter received daily reports of alien governments attempting to negotiate separate peace deals. From her headquarters aboard the Manifest Destiny, she coordinated humanity's diplomatic response to these desperate overtures. The Valak Consortium wants to surrender their entire fleet in exchange for protection, her aide, Captain Jake Morrison, reported. The Centauri Alliance is offering to become a human protectorate. Even some Zephyrian colonies are declaring independence from their empire and asking for human protection. "Accept all reasonable offers," Lisa replied. "But make it clear that cooperation with humanity requires complete transparency. Any attempt to deceive us will result in immediate military action." The psychology was deliberate. Humans were demonstrating that cooperation brought safety, while resistance brought destruction. The message was spreading throughout the galaxy. Choose your side carefully, because humans remember their friends and their enemies. Captain Nancy Rogers' sacrifice had become legendary among both human and alien forces. The destroyed Helix Dreadnought served as a symbol of human determination. No alien commander wanted to face an enemy willing to die to achieve victory. Commander Beth Anderson led Marine assault teams through the ruins of a Zephyrian research station. The facility had been abandoned when human forces approached, but the equipment and data left behind provided valuable intelligence. "Look at this," Sergeant Tony Garcia said, pointing to a computer display. They were studying human military history. They have detailed files on every major Earth war for the past 1,000 years. "What were they looking for?" asked Corporal Megan Clark. "Weaknesses," Beth replied grimly. "They were trying to understand how humans fight so they could develop countermeasures. The problem is that they focused on our past wars against each other. They never understood that fighting other humans is completely different from fighting alien species." The research confirmed what human intelligence had suspected. The aliens had been preparing for war against humanity for years, but they had fundamentally misunderstood their enemy. They expected humans to fight like humans had fought each other, with restraint, with rules, with concern for civilian casualties. Instead, they faced humans fighting like humans fought against existential threats, with complete dedication, unlimited creativity, and absolute determination to win. Dr. Ryan Clark's cyber warfare campaign was achieving results beyond expectations. Alien computer networks across 3 empires were completely compromised. Military orders were corrupted, supply requisitions were misdirected, and communication systems displayed false information. We've gained access to the Zephyrian Central Command Network, Ryan reported from his facility on Luna Base. We can now monitor every military communication in their empire. Better yet, we can alter those communications without them knowing. What's your recommendation? Asked Admiral Brooks. We start feeding them false information about human force positions. Let them waste resources chasing phantom fleets while our real forces move freely. Within a week, their entire military will be chasing shadows. The aliens were discovering that human warfare extended far beyond physical combat. Humans fought on every possible level: military, economic, psychological, and technological. They attacked not just alien bodies, but alien minds, alien societies, and alien ways of thinking. President Foster met with his cabinet to review the war's progress. The reports were almost too successful. Human forces were advancing faster than anyone had predicted. The alien alliance was collapsing more quickly than the most optimistic projections. Mr. President, General Hayes reported, at current pace, we estimate complete victory within 6 weeks. The aliens simply cannot mount effective resistance anymore. What about casualties? Foster asked. Human casualties remain remarkably low, Admiral Brooks replied. Our tactics have been so effective that we rarely face organized resistance. General Patricia Young stood on the bridge of the massive human battleship Determination and watched alien supply convoys burn in the darkness of space. 3 weeks into the war, humanity had moved beyond simple military strikes. Now they were implementing something the aliens had never experienced: total war. General, the blockade of the Helix trade routes is complete, reported Captain Steve Rodriguez from his battlecruiser Retribution. No alien supply ships have made it through our lines in 48 hours. Patricia nodded. The humans had studied ancient Earth military history carefully. They remembered how wars were really won, not just by destroying enemy armies, but by destroying the enemy's ability to fight, cut off supplies, disrupt communications, and break the will to resist. Excellent work, Captain. How are the aliens responding? They're panicking, General. Their entire economy is based on predictable trade routes and scheduled deliveries. They have no experience with this kind of economic warfare. On the planet Helix Prime, alien civilians were seeing empty shelves in their stores for the first time in centuries. The Helix Collective had built their society on the assumption that supply lines were sacred and would never be attacked during conflicts. Humans had no such assumptions. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos led her special operations team through the ventilation system of a Corvan command center on the planet Vectar. Her soldiers moved like ghosts through the alien facility. The Corvans had built their defenses to stop frontal assaults, not infiltration by small teams. Remember, she whispered to her squad, we're not here to kill everyone. We're here to make them afraid. Fear is more effective than death. Sergeant First Class Tom Brady planted explosive charges on the main computer core, while Staff Sergeant Kelly White disabled the backup communication systems. In 30 minutes, the entire Corvan regional command structure would be blind and deaf. Charges set, Tom reported. When these go off, they'll lose contact with every unit in this sector. Perfect, Maria replied. Let's show them how vulnerable they really are. The special operations teams were hitting targets across alien space. Not just military installations, but the infrastructure that kept alien society functioning. Power plants, communication hubs, transportation networks, all carefully selected to maximize psychological impact. On Earth, cyber warfare specialist Dr. Ryan Clark was fighting a different kind of battle. His team had penetrated alien computer networks with viruses designed specifically for non-human logic systems. The beauty of alien artificial intelligence, Ryan explained to his technicians, is that it follows very predictable patterns. They build their systems to be efficient, not secure. They never imagined anyone would attack their networks from the inside. The results were devastating. Alien military computers began displaying false information. Supply requests were misdirected. Orders were corrupted or delayed. The aliens found themselves fighting their own technology as much as human forces. Dr. Jennifer Kim, working from the intelligence ship Prometheus, monitored alien communications across the war zone. What she heard confirmed that human psychological warfare was working perfectly. "They're calling us the patient predators," she reported to Admiral Brooks. One transmission referred to humans as the species that smiles while it destroys you. Their morale is collapsing faster than their military resistance. The transformation in human society continued to accelerate. On the colony world New Texas, factories that had produced farming equipment were now manufacturing weapons with ruthless efficiency. Citizens who had been teachers and shopkeepers were learning to operate military production lines. Engineer Bob Taylor watched his wife Susan work late into the night developing new biological weapons. The change in her personality disturbed him deeply. The woman he had married was gentle and curious about alien life. Now she designed ways to incapacitate aliens with cold scientific precision. "Susan," he said one evening, "do you ever think about what we're becoming?" She looked up from her research. "We're becoming what we need to become to survive. The aliens forced this choice on us. But what happens when the war is over? Can we go back to being the people we were?" Susan was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know, Bob. I honestly don't know." Similar conversations were happening across human space. Dr. Susan Taylor, the xenobiologist who had once advocated for peaceful contact with alien species, now spent her days designing weapons that exploited alien biology. The irony was bitter. Her knowledge of alien physiology, gained through years of peaceful research, was now being used to wage war more effectively. Commander Frank Davis led the siege of the Corvin Fortress world Karak Prime. The planet was heavily defended with orbital platforms and surface-based weapons. A direct assault would cost thousands of human lives, so Frank chose a different approach. "We're not going to attack the planet," he announced to his fleet commanders. "We're going to starve it." The human fleet positioned itself around Karak Prime and simply waited. Every supply ship that tried to reach the planet was turned away or destroyed. Food shipments stopped. Fuel deliveries ended. Medical supplies ran out. "Sir," asked Commander Julie Harrison, "how long do we maintain the blockade?" "Until they surrender, or until their population forces their government to surrender," Frank replied. "Time is on our side. They need supplies to survive. We just need patience." The psychological effect on the Corvin population was immediate and devastating. They had never experienced siege warfare. Their military doctrine focused on quick, decisive battles. The concept of slowly strangling an enemy into submission was foreign and terrifying. On the diplomatic front, Ambassador Lisa Carter worked from her new headquarters aboard the human dreadnought Manifest Destiny. Alien governments were beginning to send surrender offers, but not to end the war, just to keep human forces away from their territories. "The Thurian Republic wants to declare neutrality," her aide Captain Jake Morrison reported. "They're offering to provide intelligence on Zephyrian positions in exchange for protection from human attack." "And the Vakari Federation?" "They want to join our side. They're offering their entire merchant fleet to support human logistics." Lisa smiled coldly. Fear is a powerful motivator. Accept both offers. Let the other aliens see that cooperation with humanity has benefits while resistance has consequences. The turning point came when Captain Nancy Rogers, commanding the frigate Swift Justice, encountered a Helix Collective dreadnought near the mining world Omega-7. The alien ship was 10 times larger and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. "Captain," her weapons officer, Lieutenant Dan Phillips, said, "we're completely outgunned. Should we retreat?" Nancy looked at the massive alien warship on her display. "No, Lieutenant. We're going to show them something they've never seen before." "What's that, Captain?" "A human who refuses to back down." Nancy activated the ship's communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for Protocol Omega. All crew to escape pods immediately." Protocol Omega was something no alien military had ever encountered. A deliberate suicide attack by a ship's captain while the crew escaped to safety. The concept was so foreign to alien thinking that they had no defense against it. The Swift Justice accelerated toward the dreadnought at maximum speed. Nancy stayed at her post while her crew evacuated. At the last moment, she activated the ship's experimental drive system, creating a controlled antimatter explosion that tore through both vessels. The destruction of the Helix dreadnought sent shockwaves through alien military command. A small human frigate had destroyed their most powerful warship through sheer determination and willingness to sacrifice. "How do we fight an enemy that chooses death over defeat?" asked Helix Admiral Zenkara during an emergency military council. "You don't," replied his intelligence officer. "You surrender before they decide you're too dangerous to leave alive." Back on Earth, President Foster met with his military advisors to review the war's progress. The reports were staggering. Human forces had achieved every objective while suffering minimal casualties. The alien alliance was collapsing under pressure they had never imagined possible. "Mr. President," General Hayes reported, "our intelligence indicates that several alien governments are considering unconditional surrender. The Zephyrian Empire has lost contact with over 60% of their military forces. The Corvan war machine is running out of supplies. The Helix Collective is facing civilian unrest on their core worlds." "How long before complete victory?" Foster asked. Admiral Brooks consulted her tactical displays. "At current pace, sir, the alien alliance will cease to exist as an effective fighting force within 90 days. Their military structure simply cannot adapt to our methods." "And what about us? What are we becoming in the process?" The room fell silent. Everyone knew the answer, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Finally, General Hayes spoke. "Sir, we're becoming what we always were underneath, the most effective predators this galaxy has ever seen. The question is whether we can remember how to be anything else when this is over." Outside the Pentagon, the night sky showed the lights of human warships departing for alien space. Each ship carried crews that had been transformed by war from explorers and scientists into warriors and hunters. Colonel Dan Phillips stood in the ruins of Zephron, the former capital of the Zephyrian Empire. His soldiers moved through the empty streets like ghosts, their weapons ready but unnecessary. The city had been abandoned weeks ago when human forces approached. Now it belonged to humanity, along with everything else in this sector of space. "Sir," Sergeant First Class Mike Wilson reported, "we've secured the government district. No resistance encountered. The civilians fled so quickly they left everything behind." Dan looked at the abandoned buildings. 3 months ago, this had been the center of galactic power. Zephyrian leaders had ruled hundreds of worlds from these towers. Now those same leaders were hiding in bunkers on distant planets, begging for mercy from the humans they had tried to subjugate. "Set up defensive positions anyway," Dan ordered. "And remember, we're occupiers now, not liberators. The civilians who stayed behind are not our friends. They're conquered people who hate us." The transformation in his soldiers disturbed him. These men and women had joined the military to defend human colonies. Now they were occupying alien worlds and imposing human rule on species that had never asked for it. The change was visible in their faces, harder, colder, more suspicious of everything around them. Dr. Susan Taylor worked late in her laboratory on Mars, developing the final generation of biological weapons. The gentle xenobiologist who had once dreamed of peaceful contact with alien species was gone. In her place was someone who could design viruses that targeted alien nervous systems with scientific precision. Her husband Bob found her staring at test results at 3 in the morning. "Susan, you need to sleep." She looked up with eyes he barely recognized. "I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see what we've become." "What do you mean?" "Look at this," she said, pointing to her computer screen. "I've created a biological agent that can incapacitate an entire Zephyrian city in hours. It's elegant, efficient, and completely inhuman. 3 months ago, I would have been horrified by this research. Now I'm proud of it." Bob sat down beside her. "The war forced us to change. When it's over, we can change back." Susan laughed bitterly. "Can we? I know how to kill aliens in ways they can't even imagine. That knowledge doesn't just disappear when peace returns. We've crossed a line, Bob. I'm not sure there's a way back." Similar conversations were happening across human space. Citizens who had lived peaceful lives for decades were discovering capabilities they never knew they possessed. The war had awakened something in humanity that many people weren't sure they wanted to keep awake. On Earth, Admiral Helen Brooks met with her fleet commanders to plan the final phases of the war. The reports from occupied alien territories were troubling. Human forces were maintaining order through fear and superior firepower, but the occupied populations were becoming increasingly desperate. "Admiral," reported Admiral Craig Watson, "we're seeing signs of guerrilla resistance on several occupied worlds. Nothing we can't handle, but it's requiring more troops to maintain control." "What kind of resistance?" Brooks asked. "Mostly sabotage and assassination attempts. The aliens are learning that they can't fight our technology, so they're targeting individual soldiers and civilian administrators." Admiral Julie Harrison added her concerns. "Ma'am, the occupation forces are requesting permission to implement harsher security measures. They want to restrict alien movement, monitor all communications, and establish detention centers for suspected resistance members." Brooks felt a chill. "Detention centers? We're talking about concentration camps for civilian aliens. The field commanders say it's necessary for security," Watson replied. "They argue that we can't maintain control without suppressing potential threats." "And what do you think, Admiral?" Watson was quiet for a moment. "I think we're becoming something we swore we'd never become. But I also think that if we don't maintain control, we'll face decades of insurgency and terrorism." The military was facing an impossible choice: maintain occupation through increasingly harsh measures, or withdraw and risk renewed alien aggression. Neither option preserved the moral high ground that humanity had once claimed. Dr. Rachel Morgan submitted her final weapons research report from the Mars Research Institute. The document detailed enough destructive capability to sterilize entire planets. Technologies that had been developed for scientific exploration were now optimized for maximum lethality. "We have succeeded beyond our wildest expectations," she wrote. "Human weapons technology now surpasses anything in the galaxy. We can destroy alien fleets, occupy alien worlds, and control alien populations with ease. The question is no longer whether we can win this war, but whether we can live with what we've become in order to win it." President Foster received the report and felt sick reading it. In 6 months, humanity had transformed from a peaceful spacefaring civilization into the galaxy's dominant military power. The cost was being measured not in casualties, but in the loss of human innocence. On the frontier colony of New Texas, children played new games in the schoolyard. Instead of exploring and building, they played human soldiers and alien enemies. The games were disturbingly realistic, with detailed knowledge of alien anatomy and military tactics. Teacher Linda Martinez watched her students with growing concern. "Where did you learn to play like this?" she asked 10-year-old Tommy Chen from "The news broadcasts," Tommy replied matter-of-factly. "My daddy says humans are the best fighters in the galaxy. He says the aliens were stupid to mess with us." "And what happens to the aliens in your game?" "They lose and have to do what we tell them. That's what happens to enemies." Linda realized that an entire generation of human children was growing up with the assumption that humans were naturally dominant over other species. The peaceful coexistence that had been humanity's goal for decades was being replaced by casual acceptance of human supremacy. Captain Steve Rodriguez led his battlecruiser through what had once been the Helix Collective's core territories. The region was now under human military administration. Alien ships moved only with human permission. Alien governments existed only at human sufferance. "Captain," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a distress call from the Helix colony on Tau Ceti 4. They're reporting food shortages and requesting emergency supplies." Steve looked at the tactical display. The colony had been cut off from supply routes for 3 months. The population was probably starving. "What are our orders regarding humanitarian aid?" he asked his executive officer. "Sir, current policy is that humanitarian aid is contingent on full cooperation with human occupation forces. The colony must surrender all weapons and accept human oversight of their government. And if they refuse, then they continue to starve until they change their minds." Steve felt the weight of the decision. He had the power to save thousands of alien lives with a simple supply delivery. But doing so without conditions would undermine human military policy. The colony's suffering was being used as leverage to force political compliance. "Proceed to Tau Ceti 4, he ordered. "We'll deliver the ultimatum in person." Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos returned from her latest special operations mission with troubling news. Her team had been infiltrating alien resistance cells, but what they found was not organized military opposition. "General," she reported to Patricia Young, "the resistance movements are mostly civilians. Families whose relatives died in our attacks. Scientists whose research facilities were destroyed. Teachers whose schools were bombed. We're not fighting soldiers anymore. We're fighting people who have lost everything. What are your recommendations, Colonel?" "Honestly, ma'am, I think we need to consider whether this level of occupation is necessary. We've broken their military capability completely. Continuing to suppress civilian populations is just creating more enemies." General Young nodded grimly. "I agree, but the decision isn't ours to make. Political leadership wants guarantee that these species will never threaten humanity again. That requires long-term control." "At what cost, General?" Every day we maintain this occupation, we become more like the empires we fought against. We're ruling through fear and force. The question was spreading through human military leadership. Victory was assured, but the price of that victory was the transformation of human civilization into something unrecognizable. Dr. Paul Martinez, monitoring alien communications from his intelligence post, reported increasing desperation in alien leadership. "They're not just defeated," he told Admiral Brooks. "They're broken. Some alien leaders are committing suicide rather than continue governing under human oversight. Others are collaborating so enthusiastically that their own people consider them traitors." What about resistance movements? Fragmenting and radicalizing. The moderate aliens who might have accepted reasonable peace terms are being replaced by extremists who see any compromise with humanity as betrayal of their species. The cycle was becoming self-perpetuating. Harsh human occupation policies created desperate resistance, which justified even harsher policies, which created more resistance. Neither side could find a way to break the pattern. President Foster convened an emergency cabinet meeting to address the growing concerns about post-war governance. The room was filled with advisors who looked exhausted by the moral weight of their decisions. Admiral Helen Brooks stood on the bridge of her flagship Sovereign and watched the massive space station Harmony's Edge grow larger on the main screen. For 50 years, this station had been the symbol of galactic cooperation and peaceful diplomacy. Today, it would become the symbol of human dominance. Around her flagship, the largest human fleet ever assembled moved through space like a deadly storm. 300 warships, carrying enough firepower to destroy star systems, approached the heart of what had once been galactic civilization. "Admiral," reported Captain Troy Williams from the destroyer Silent Thunder, "we have the station surrounded. All alien defensive positions are identified and targeted. We can take control within minutes of your order." Helen looked at the tactical display. The aliens had gathered their remaining forces around Harmony's Edge for a final stand. It was pathetic compared to human strength, but she understood the symbolism. This was where the war had begun with Vextar's ultimatum. This was where it would end. "Status of alien forces?" she asked. 42 ships of various classes," reported her intelligence officer. "Mixed fleet with Zephyrian, Corvin, and Helix vessels. Most are damaged from previous engagements. Their combined firepower is less than one of our battle groups. And their commander? A Corvin named Quarath. He's apparently been given authority to negotiate surrender terms." Helen almost laughed. 6 months ago, the aliens had demanded human surrender from this same station. Now they were preparing to surrender themselves from the ruins of their shattered alliance. Inside Harmony's Edge, Dr. Paul Martinez sat in what had once been the Galactic Council chamber. As the highest-ranking human military advisor captured. During the early days of the war, he had been kept as a prisoner and forced to witness the collapse of alien civilization. Now the aliens looked to him for advice on how to surrender without being completely destroyed. "Dr. Martinez," said Quarath, the grizzled Corvin admiral who commanded the pathetic remains of the alien fleet, "your people have won completely. What do they want from us?" Paul looked around the chamber where he had once attended peaceful, diplomatic sessions. The seats that had held representatives from hundreds of species were now mostly empty. Many of those species no longer existed as independent civilizations. "They want guarantee that you will never threaten humanity again," Paul replied. "Complete guarantee, permanent guarantee." "And what does that mean in practical terms?" Paul was quiet for a moment. "It means the end of independent alien civilization as you know it. It means human oversight of your governments, human control of your militaries, and human management of your technology development. The alien leaders around the table looked horrified. These were beings who had ruled star empires just months ago. Now they were being told they would exist only at human sufferance. "That is not surrender," said the Helix representative. "That is slavery." "Yes," Paul agreed sadly. "But it's the only option my species is willing to accept. You proved that aliens cannot be trusted with the power to threaten human existence. Now humans will ensure that such power never exists again." Meanwhile, Ambassador Lisa Carter prepared for what would likely be her final diplomatic mission. She stood in the shuttle bay of the Manifest Destiny, ready to board a transport to Harmony's Edge. But she was no longer going as a diplomat seeking cooperation. She was going as the representative of the galaxy's new rulers. Captain Jake Morrison checked his sidearm one final time. "Ambassador, are you certain about this? The aliens could attempt assassination as a final desperate act." Lisa looked at her reflection in the shuttle's window. The woman looking back was not the same person who had left Earth as humanity's representative to the galaxy. This woman had learned to negotiate from a position of absolute power backed by unlimited force. "Jake, if they wanted to kill me, they would have done it months ago. They're not planning assassination. They're planning complete surrender. The question is whether we can accept their surrender without losing the last of our souls." On Earth, President Foster watched the approaching climax of the war from the Pentagon Situation Room. Reports came in from every corner of the galaxy showing human forces in complete control. The three empires that had threatened humanity were broken beyond repair. "Mr. President," reported General Hayes, "we estimate that alien military capability has been reduced by 98%. Their industrial base is operating at less than 10% of pre-war levels. Civilian populations on most alien worlds are surviving only because of human-controlled supply deliveries. What about resistance movements?" "Scattered and ineffective. Most alien populations are too focused on basic survival to organize meaningful opposition. The few resistance cells that remain are being systematically eliminated by our special operations teams." President Foster nodded, but he felt no satisfaction in the reports. "General, what happens when we achieve complete victory? What do we do with a galaxy full of conquered species?" "Sir, that's a political decision, not a military one. But I can tell you what the field commanders are recommending. Permanent occupation, with human governors appointed to oversee all alien territories. Essentially, we become a galactic empire." "Yes, sir. The reluctant rulers of species that cannot be trusted to rule themselves." The irony was bitter. Humanity had fought this war to preserve their independence, and victory was forcing them to take away the independence of everyone else. Dr. Edward King, a human psychologist studying alien refugee populations, submitted his final report on the psychological impact of human warfare. The conclusions were devastating. "The alien species are experiencing collective trauma unlike anything in recorded history," he wrote. "Entire civilizations are showing symptoms of what can only be described as species-wide post-traumatic stress disorder. They are not just militarily defeated, they are psychologically broken. Most concerning is the development of what I term submission conditioning, a psychological state where alien populations automatically defer to human authority not out of respect or cooperation, but out of deep-seated terror of human retaliation. We are not being seen as liberators or even conquerors, but as an existential threat that must be appeased at all costs." The report concluded with a warning. "The psychological damage we have inflicted on alien species may be irreversible. We have not just won a war. We have traumatized an entire galaxy into submission. Back at Harmony's Edge, the final negotiation began. Admiral Brooks, Ambassador Carter, and a small human delegation entered the station that had once been the seat of galactic government. They were met by the broken remnants of alien leadership. High Counselor Vextar, the Zephyrian who had started the war with his ultimatum, was among the alien representatives. He looked like he had aged decades in 6 months. His proud bearing was gone, replaced by the posture of someone who had learned to expect punishment for any sign of resistance. "Ambassador Carter," he said quietly, "I wish to formally apologize for my words at our last meeting. I did not understand what I was provoking." Lisa looked at the alien who had unknowingly triggered humanity's transformation into galactic overlords. "Counselor Vexitar, your apology is noted, but apologies don't undo the consequences of your choices. What are your terms for ending this conflict?" Lisa activated a holographic display that showed the new political structure of the galaxy. Every alien world was marked with human administrative zones. Every alien government was listed as under human oversight. Every alien military force was designated as disbanded or human-controlled. "These are not terms for ending the conflict," Lisa said. "These are the new realities of galactic civilization. Humanity did not start this war to negotiate a settlement. We started it to eliminate the threat permanently." The alien representatives looked at the display in horror. Their species were being reduced to the status of managed populations under human guardianship. Admiral Quareth spoke for the assembled aliens. "And if we refuse these realities?" Admiral Brooks stepped forward. "Then we continue our current military operations until your species cease to exist as organized civilizations. Your choice is simple. Accept human administration or face human extermination." The silence in the chamber was complete. The aliens were facing the end of their independence and possibly their existence as distinct species. Dr. Paul Martinez watched the proceedings with mixed emotions. As a human, he felt pride in his species' complete victory. As a scientist who had worked with alien cultures for years, he felt grief for what was being lost. "There is one more option," he said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. "What option?" Lisa asked. "Complete exile. We could designate a region of space beyond the galactic rim as alien territory. Any species that chooses exile over human administration could relocate there and be left alone, with the understanding that any return to human space would result in immediate destruction." The alien representatives looked hopeful for the first time in months. Admiral Brooks looked skeptical. "That would require monitoring and enforcement," Brooks said, "and it provides no guarantee against future threats." "It provides the guarantee of distance," Paul replied, "and it allows both humans and aliens to choose what kind of future they want." Lisa considered the proposal. It offered a middle path between complete. President Alan Foster stood before the United Earth Assembly in what had once been the United Nations building. Behind him, Admiral Helen Brooks and General Patricia Young wore uniforms decorated with medals for victories that felt more like defeats. The war was over. Humanity had won completely, but the cost was becoming clear. The assembly hall was filled with representatives from human colonies across the galaxy. These were no longer the peaceful settlements they had been a year ago. Every human world was now a fortress. Every human city was now a military base, and every human citizen was now a soldier in the galaxy's dominant empire. Citizens of humanity, Foster began, his voice carrying across the hall and to every human world in space. 14 months ago, alien forces demanded our surrender. Today, those same forces exist only at our sufferance. We have achieved total victory in the greatest war in galactic history. The applause was subdued. Victory celebrations felt wrong when the price had been so high. But we must acknowledge what this victory has cost us, Foster continued. We are no longer the species that left Earth hoping to join a galactic community of equals. We are the species that rules the galaxy through fear and superior firepower. And Mars, Dr. Rachel Morgan submitted her final report to the Human Defense Council. The document was titled, What We Learned About Ourselves. Her conclusions were disturbing. We discovered that humans don't start wars because when we do, we cannot stop ourselves from finishing them completely, she wrote. Our capacity for systematic destruction exceeds anything the galaxy has ever seen. We don't just defeat enemies, we eliminate them so thoroughly that the threat can never return. The aliens made a fatal error in their understanding of human nature. They believed our defensive posture indicated weakness. In reality, it indicated wisdom. We knew what we were capable of, and we chose not to use those capabilities unless forced. Now we have been forced to use them, and the galaxy will never be the same. Ambassador Lisa Carter, now bearing the official title of Galactic Governor, established her headquarters in the former Galactic Council chambers. The irony was not lost on her. She sat in the same chair where she had once pleaded for peaceful coexistence, now administering a galaxy divided between human-controlled space and exile zones. Captain Jake Morrison, promoted to colonel, served as her military advisor. Governor, we're receiving the final reports from the exile fleets. 17 alien species have departed for the Outer Rim. They're taking approximately 12 million individuals with them. What about the species that chose to remain under human administration? Integration is proceeding according to plan. Most alien populations are cooperating fully. They seem to understand that resistance is futile. Lisa nodded, but she felt no satisfaction. Jake, do you ever think about what would have happened if Vextar had never made his ultimatum? You mean, if the war had never started? Yes. Would we still be sitting in peaceful diplomatic sessions trying to build a better galaxy together? Jake was quiet for a moment. Honestly, Governor, I think the war was inevitable. The aliens saw humans as a threat to their control of the galaxy. We saw them as a threat to our independence. Something had to give. But did it have to give so completely? The question haunted human leadership across the galaxy. They had achieved perfect security at the cost of becoming the very thing they had once opposed. An empire that ruled through force. Dr. Susan Taylor continued her research on Mars, but her focus had changed. Instead of developing new weapons, she was trying to understand the biological changes in humans themselves. The war had transformed more than just human society. Bob, she told her husband one evening, I've been studying stress hormone levels in returning soldiers. They're not returning to pre-war baselines. Physiologically, humans are adapting to a state of permanent readiness for conflict. What does that mean? It means we're evolving into a warrior species. Our bodies are changing to match our new role as galactic enforcers. The peaceful humans who first went to space may be gone forever.